How did you decide what to eat? Are you focused on taste or focused on what medical says you should eat? I'm asking the question because I saw a thumbnail from a doctor that I absolutely respect that had the caption on it, "Science has been ignoring this." Now, first of all, I truly doubt that this doctor made that statement because I know that YouTube people, they put whatever is clicky on the thumbnail. But it did get me thinking about what is what makes us choose the foods that we choose? Why do we eat what we eat? Now, here's a big spoiler. I don't believe that science or scientists are ignoring anything. Okay. What I think is the reason we decide to research something impacts what gets studied, and that impacts what all of us end up eating. So, originally, experiments were designed out of a genuine curiosity about a topic, and a well designed study would have been formulated to test an idea. A positive outcome was seen as evidence that we're on the right track. A negative outcome was seen as we got it wrong. We wanted to know, right? There was zero ulterior motives. That's real science. We compare that to the pseudoscience that we do today, where we start with an endpoint and then construct a study to give us the result that we want. Now, typically, the outcome that's wanted, if we're doing that kind of pseudoscience, is for us to consume something or buy something or engage with something. Basically, they want us to go in a certain direction, to believe a certain something. And they are using our desire for science to show us reality, to tell us that that thing is actually reality. And it isn't. What's frustrating is that good science can be taken and used in bad ways. So the kind of the huge, right, well, from 1970 to 1997, our consumption of processed foods went up 37%. And that was because companies began to use psychological research to learn how to better manipulate us into eating their garbage, right? Those processed, ultra processed foods. What was the result of this? Well, by 2002, the prevalence of obesity in our 2 to 19-year-olds was 15%. That's crazy numbers, Montessori. These are the years where those children should be their healthiest, should be out running around and living life. Or at 19, you should still be looking amazing and feeling amazing, and your body should still be working at an excellent status. And our youth, 15% obesity. Now, if you have 15% obesity, that means that there's a bunch of overweight children there. And all of this because we figured out how to get people to eat more junk food, how to convince them that it was healthy. Now, we also in that period of time did a lot of research on what is healthy to eat. Did it have an impact? Well, if we go forward another few years, by 2020, the prevalence in that age group is 19.7%. So even with all the research that we were doing on what's healthy to eat, nothing changes that progression. It actually got worse. So With all the information that we have on what we should be eating, obesity is still on the rise. And the science that we're looking to isn't giving us a good answer. Now, I want to point something else out because this is another piece of there's too many things here because I feel like the other thing that can happen is that science can be ignored. And one of the worst examples that I've ever heard of personally of this was when Ignaz Semmelweis put out a paper in 1861 where he looked at the doctors that in the delivery rooms and the prevalence of the mothers leaving and having all kinds of health issues after giving birth, and some of them dying, some of them being very ill, some of the babies dying, etc. Compared it to the midwives who rarely had that problem. And he did some research, and what he found was that the midwives washing their hands somehow was what came forward to be killing the germs and getting the germs off of themselves before they went from one patient, so one mother to another, versus the doctors believing that there's no need for them to wash their hands between procedures from one woman to the other. And so therefore, women were getting sick. And even though the research was there, even though the obvious outcome was obvious and there, their idea about being above these people, above germs, above everything, it stopped them from looking at the data. Now, the sad story is that Semmelweis actually ended up dying from exactly the thing he figured out years later when he was hospitalized. Because, of course, no hands were washed. Today, we have countless examples of people who have solved metabolic syndrome and its related problems with changes to their diet. And yet, the information is discounted rather than further discussed. So, have you ever noticed yourself, if you've had this conversation with your doctor, the immediate reaction that you got from your doctor, your nurse, your health practitioner? What was it? Was it to instill fear? Was it to tell you that this can't be good what you're doing? Or was it to ask questions and perhaps to offer some follow-up labs to ensure your good health? Unfortunately, far too many people that I talk to have that first scenario where the doctor just creates this scary sounding story for them, sometimes despite their positive outcome, convincing them to get off the healthy diet. Now, I just want to back up a minute because research isn't the enemy, wellness warrior. The problem is when we think that research can solve problems that it cannot. See, the thing is, repeatedly, doctors have pointed out that we cannot do appropriate research because we cannot control what someone eats unless we have control of them 24/7. So now, the best we can do is hope for self-reports. And even that can't be trusted because people lie, right? We don't like to fail. We don't like to look bad. We don't like to admit that we can't do something. And so we might just say we ate on plan when we didn't. That's not good for research. And researchers know that people lie. That's why they build into the research questions to search for lies, right? It's part of research questionnaires. So they don't try to implement long-term studies that would expect rigid controls. So all the research that we do get is based on these very loose, tell me what you ate kind of things where they just try not to let people know what they're checking for. Now, The end result is that we haven't actually researched any diet in a meaningful way at all. And what that means for you and I is that all the research talking about how good a diet is for your health or how good a diet is for a particular health problem that you might have is based on comparing that diet to the standard American diet in a short term kind of scenario, because again, we can't control people for long term, and we can't even, so we're comparing, right? Hard not to beat the standard American diet. Well, sorry, first of all, anybody who is not right, it's just hard not to beat them, to beat it. Okay, so back to my original question. How do you decide what to eat? Well, we used to base what we ate on what our ancestors ate. All right. My parents and their parents and their, but like we used to go, we all just kind of ate similarly. Now, our ancestors did not eat ultra processed food. That's the first thing that I want to pause on. And I want us all to just stop and really think about this. Ultra processed food is something that has been around. If I say even 100 years, I think that's a lot. It's not been there 200, 300, 400 years. Ultra processed food, that's what we have in the grocery today in those center aisles. That's mostly a mixture of grains and chemicals. That every one of the things in those center aisles has some kind of chemical in it to keep it from spoiling. Our ancestors were not eating that. And just the fact that there's chemicals in our food, I think, is enough to say that we've degraded the amount of health we have. Right? Just right there. Chemicals in our food, degraded. Now, it's really hard not to eat food that has chemicals on it because we spray our crops. Again, something our ancestors were not doing. You know, when our ancestors planted a crop and the bunnies came and ate it, or the squirrels came and ate it, or the bugs were eating it, what we did was try to eat it before them, right? And even at that, we knew to wait for it to be ripe. But we tried to eat it before them. We tried to knock it away. We tried to we made noises to scare the animals away. It's not the same food. Now, the other things that our ancestor did not eat fruits and vegetables and grains and legumes and nuts and seeds and all these things every single day, right? They ate them once in a while. Well, not even once in a while. They ate them in season. That's what they did. They ate them in season because that's when they were available. Most of the year, our ancestors would have had, well, they would have had access to meat, fish, poultry, and eggs because those things are available year round because animals are available year round. I really need us to understand that before we had all the research to tell us what was healthy to eat, we had to make decisions somehow. We had to, because otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here, none of us, because we wouldn't have made it. And we made those decisions based on two important factors. Those important factors were what was available, because I can't eat it if it isn't there, and we avoided what was poisonous. Okay. How did we know it was poisonous? Well, if any one of us ate it and got sick, poisonous. If any one of us ate it and had an allergic reaction, poisonous. So allergic reactions can be rashes and right, like poison. Anything that are, if we stop functioning the way we were functioning before, the rest of us would look at that food, that plant, and say, "Ooh, poisonous." If we ate it and cried out in some kind of pain, we wouldn't eat it, Wellness Warrior. Do we notice that today? One of the ones that really makes me laugh is we will concentrate the toxins in a plant and put it in a sauce and put it in our mouth, and it's making us our tears, and our mouth is burning. And somehow we've decided that this is good to do to ourselves. And so good to do to ourselves. Some of us do it daily. Some of us do it so much that we're not even noticing the heat or right the reaction that our mouth is having anymore. And we think this is okay. We think this is good. We think this is what we're supposed. No. The answer is so simple. And yet we're not doing it, Wellness Warrior. The answer is listen to your body. Listen to the body of the people beside you, because we can learn vicariously, by the way, right? We can look at what other people are doing and say, oh man, that was not good. I don't want that. So I listen to my body. I listen to the bodies of the people in my family. I listen to the bodies, right? And I learn from them. If we eat what nourishes, protects, and energizes us, as Dr. Ede is teaching, and we leave the rest of the plants to the other animals, we will do much better in life because we'll be healthier. Our bodies will work well. We will feel amazing. Now, I linked a video below that looks at the idea of what's safe for human consumption, because I had a video about that I talked about because of a different reason. And I have another video down there that's talking about what's the healthiest thing for us to eat, and goes over what happened when I ate eggs for a month. So I thought that was a really good video to follow up this topic today. Now I'm going to turn my attention to the comments. If you have comments that you would like, so questions you'd like me to answer, any comments on what I talked about today, please put them in the comments now, because I'd love to answer your questions. And Patrick, hello. Nice to have you here with us this morning. And to answer my question, Patrick says, I heavily rely on what my spouse has researched and identified what's best for us. Thank you. Navy 8204 says Columbia, Illinois by St. Louis. I would love to know, Navy, how did you decide what you're eating? That'd be good for us to, let's talk. And any questions, I want to add an idea here, because this came to me when I was sitting down just before I started the stream today. What was good for good health used to be good for the community. That came to me when I was going to sit down. We needed people to be strong. We needed people to be healthy. And so what was good for good health was good for the community. So we were pushed to have what was good for good health. Now we need money to survive. And so what's good for us is what makes more money. And I honestly feel like that's totally having a huge impact on what's going wrong in a lot of this situation. So if anybody has a comment on that, I would love to hear what you have to say on that as well. Oh, so think before you act. I'm starting my keto journey, and I'm very happy for you to be starting Think Before You Act, because it's great to get your health back to where you want to have it. Where do I get free keto meal? Are you talking about meal ideas? The one thing that I will say that I tell everyone is, if you're going to start a keto lifestyle, what you need to do is think about what's going to be sustainable for you long into the future. That's the best way to start. And so I encourage you, look at your current way of eating and take the high carb things off your plate. If you just start there, try to get yourself down to 20 grams of carbs with the meats that you're used to. And then you can work on the spices in the meat once you're used to having all that carbohydrate off your plate. I think that's probably the easiest way to do that, to get into a keto lifestyle that allows you to do it and do it far into the future. Because the other piece of this, think before you act, is that keto is not a diet. It is a way of life that is going to help you to get your health back help you to stay healthy far into the future, and help you to not be chasing garbage that isn't helping your body. So if those are the things you're looking for, then I definitely encourage you to focus on making sure whatever way you're eating keto, you can do it for the long term. I love how you add research to your videos. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Rachel, hello. Yes, we need money to survive. Good doctors and good medical advice is not cheap. I found the more I pay out of pocket, the better I feel. I'm so grateful I found Carnivore, feeling like myself again. You know what's really interesting about that, though, Rachel, is that, first of all, when we eat the right foods, we need less medical. And therefore, we end up needing to be paying less to medical. We would have more money for ourselves. The problem is, and this is where I feel like they trick us, is that the cost of garbage is always lower than the cost of the healthy good foods. So, I remember going to the grocery store and buying apples for my daughter for school, and they had these fancy grapples. So that was grape flavored apples. And I did buy them because the price wasn't bad. They weren't that much more than the regular apples. And they tasted more fun. And that meant she ate more of them, right? And the thing is that but those apples and the grapples still cost less than the meat, fish, poultry, um, eggs, milk that I was buying for her. Like that stuff was cheaper. So I feel like they get us because we end up giving our money to the food that we think is cost effective because we also think it's healthy. It's not. And then so we give our money there and we end up, unfortunately, harming our health and needing more medical assistance. And all of this happening because we're confused. All of this happening because we don't quite know what's best for us anymore because we're so far removed from gathering our food and interacting with our food. And, even if you're doing a keto lifestyle and you grow your own vegetation, if you're able to grow that vegetation without putting chemicals on it, I think you're going to do better than all these chemical laden produce that we buy in the grocery store because that's how they have to, not to mention that's how they have to grow them so that they can harvest enough to make enough profit, or would they make enough profit if they harvested less without the chemicals? Probably. But we live in a world where what they want to do is make the maximum profit all the time, and they don't care if that harms our health. But the other thing I was going to say is that if you grow your own veg at home, if you are keto and you're growing your own veg at home, the multiplier benefit to you is that you're going to pick that veg when it's ripe. And picking the veg when it's ripe means that the plant has removed the toxins because now it wants whatever animal it was intending to eat it to come get it, right? We keep picking that's the secondary reason why the stuff in the grocery store that is produce can be harmful, is because they pick it before it's ripe so that it can travel across the world where the people who are going to eat it are going to eat it, because otherwise in the winter, let me see, spring, winter, and summer, we wouldn't have all the veg that we have because like there's a certain season, I don't know exactly when it is, somewhere in the fall there, or the late summer, fall, whatever, that that things are available to bloom and be eaten, but the rest of the year they're not. And so what would we do? So I do think that there's a huge reason why we have these animals that fly, and they go around, they follow the seasons and follow the food so that they can eat, right? Like I think it's just we don't want to acknowledge, we don't want to accept that we're eating things that are causing this pain because the world is telling us that this is how it's always been, but it's not the way it's always been. It can't have been like this because we started shipping things around the world maybe in the 1800s, maybe before, like when did we get boats is probably when we started shipping things. But even the things we were shipping couldn't last on the boat as long as it would take the boat. So it was mostly for the people who were on the boat to survive till they got to the others. Again, we didn't used to eat like this, right? So getting back to our natural way of eating, which would be a carnivore way of eating the majority of the time, and maybe having some veg once in a while. Although now with the high availability, so that's the other piece of the puzzle, with the high availability of meat, our need for vegetation is also less, right? Because we would probably in the summer allow ourselves to supplement with vegetation because it's there. If I'm hungry, why wouldn't I eat the vegetation that I know I can eat, that I know that that's not harmful, and it will sustain me till I catch something. So all the things, all the things, all the things. Let's see. I eat rice every day. I don't know how to substitute. I don't know that I encourage people to substitute per se. I think there's certain things that we just need to put down and understand that it wasn't healthy for us to be eating. And so therefore we don't need to have it in our meal. Like, so substituting it, I think it's about choosing a vegetable that you like. Since you said you're going to do keto, choose a vegetable, a few vegetables that you like. But again, I'm going to point out, if I was eating rice and I was having rice every day, then choosing a vegetable that I actually like and eating that vegetable is comparable to eating rice every day. Now, I don't know if that's what you're going to end up doing, but I can tell you that for the longest time, the vegetable that I had on my plate was either um, broccoli, cauliflower, or cabbage. I started off my journey eating a lot of vegetables, and that was new to me because I followed Dr. Berg and believed that's what I needed to do. But as soon as I learned that I didn't actually need to do that, that made my life so much easier because I don't but I didn't like vegetables. I could say that I learned to like them though. And that was another interesting, what's really funny? When you put down garbage and start eating real food, it is amazing how you end up liking what you're eating. It is amazing how the vegetables that you used to think taste gross taste good. Now, I stopped eating them. And the question is why? They tasted good to you. So eventually, yes, they tasted good to me. Why did I stop eating them? I stopped eating them because they were not necessary. I stopped eating them because I learned that there were toxins in there that I didn't need to be putting in my body that possibly were derailing my progress. So when we did a carnivore challenge, which is another video on my challenge that you could check out on my channel that you could check out if you want to, where we started off with the goal of doing 1 month carnivore. And I enjoyed it so much, I did 2 months. And then when I reintroduced veg, yeah, I wasn't as impressed. I wasn't as happy with it. I had bodily reactions because I did not have them for 2 months. So my gut biome had completely changed. And then here I was reintroducing veg. And I came to the conclusion that, you know what? Yeah, I don't need all this stuff. So after doing carnivore, my intake of vegetation dropped even more. So my point to you, think before you act, is that you can actually decide to have a few vegetables there that you like to eat. So find a way to cook them that you like them, and just understand that it's not about replacing things, because the other piece of this puzzle is that replacement foods sometimes trick us into wanting the thing, because replacement foods don't actually taste exactly right. And that happened to me. I was making replacement bread so that we could have hamburgers. And what I realized is that every time I would have a hamburger with that replacement bread, all it did was make me want real bread. Versus when I had my hamburger in a lettuce wrap, I was perfectly fine. I didn't care. When we made burgers and I used um a lettuce wrap, and the other thing that I tried was cabbage wrap, or just anything that, or even just eating the burger like that and just having the burger, all of that, didn't care about the bread. But like having bread that doesn't taste right bugged me. And it's not that I would ever eat the bread, because by that point I was like far away from that, but it bugged me, right? I think it's always best to put down the thing that's causing the problem, so that you learn to eat healthy based on eating healthy. I hope that makes sense. Hello, Annie L. Thank you for jumping in. Thank you, Rachel. So, Navy 80 to 04. I purchase my meat by the whole cow locally. Eggs also. I started 7 years ago keto, and then 5 years ago carnivore, because a RA, an RA. I feel like that's I can't remember what RA stands for, but fatty liver, pre-diabetic, high blood pressure, acid reflux, RA. Okay, I have the feeling that has something to do with the heart, I want to say, but I'm not sure. So you were on 9 medications, and you changed everything so that you could heal your health. Honestly, maybe that's amazing. And I'm first of all so happy for you. I'm assuming 7 years later you're feeling better. So happy for you. And I really wish that we all were would find keto and carnivore, if we end up in that story where we have weight to lose, or and health issues to solve. I wish we could find it first, right? And what I really wish is that our children are given it right out the gate, because I think that if our children were doing, at the minimum, no processed foods, they'd live a much healthier life. And I think that if our children were doing low carb, they would rock. They would, I think that most of them would make it to that 120 that we're supposed to get, no problem. I do feel like the ultra processed garbage that we have, the entertainment that we do that's intaking toxins, whether it's going to the bar or whether it's, the candy shop or the ice cream shop or the whatever, all the entertainment things we do that just throw toxins in our body. I wish we could find a way to not have our children live that story any longer. All is gone with 85 pounds of fat. Hey, congratulations. And at 63, I feel the best that you felt in 40 years. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because what you've just given, think before you act, is the reality that yes, it's completely doable. You started keto, you made your way to carnivore, you solved all your health issues. So think before you act. This is an example for you that it's doable. On keto, a good replacement for rice is cauliflower rice. Even my kids love it. Thanks, Pat. Uh, Navy, amazing. Do you know anything about mung beans? I'm trying to eat healthy food. What I hear is beans, and if they are actually beans, then for my definition, that's entertainment that you're putting on your plate. So I honestly feel like we all need to understand that every single kind of vegetation has toxins in it. And so if your goal is to eat healthy food, I would encourage you to, first of all, focus on, rather than beans, seeds, nuts, all of these are the plant grains. All of these are the plants, um, like that's the seed of the plant, right? So there are even more toxins in seeds, grains, beans, like, because that's the seed of the plant, and the plant does not want that to be eaten. That needs to go and be planted in the ground and grow, right? So like there's even more toxins in those things than there would be in vegetables. So my first thing would be focus on vegetables, if you're planning to be keto. And then the food on your plate would be the meat, fish, poultry, eggs that you eat. That's the food on your plate, and any vegetation that you're putting on your plate. So if it's a vegetable, if it's a bean, a legume, a nut, any vegetation you're putting on your plate, you're putting it on there for fun. And seriously, those plant babies should not be on our plate, because think about yourself. When you had a child, you protected that thing the most you could. And that's what plants are doing by putting those toxins in there to kind of get you to just think, don't eat that. 2 months, I switched to drinking city water to making distilled water. Wow, what a change it's been for the better. My daughter brought that. My daughter brought home the idea of drinking water when she was in elementary school. She's like, some teacher said to her that we should only be drinking water, and she took that to heart. And so we switched to drinking water when she was in elementary school, and that caused me to get a system to clean our water, because I didn't trust that drinking city water 24/7. And I will say it was the best decision I ever made. Now I make my carbonated water with the distilled, is it not distilled water, it's filtered water. Actually, by the way, I hope you're not, I think you meant to say filtered water, because you don't want to drink distilled water because there's not enough in it. Like, it's just not good for us to drink distilled water, if I understood well from some of the doctors. You want to drink filtered water. Not quite the same. Yeah, Pat's pointing that out. Um, let's see. Rachel, we use a Berkey too. Okay, and travel in our RV, so we never trust the water wherever we are. Yeah. I definitely think they're great. I agree with you, Pat. They're terrific. Um, you're very welcome, Marilyn. If anybody has any other questions, I see we're getting close to the end. If there's any other questions, this is the time to add them. Um, let's see. Is rheumatoid arthritis? So I'm not sure where that question comes from. Wow. Da, 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 da. Did I miss a question? Rheumatoid arthritis. Oh, it was rheumatoid arthritis. Oh, thank you for the clarification. Yeah, you know what? I'm starting to learn a lot of things about fructose, and there seems to be a connection. And I have to make a video about this, which I plan to do soon. But there's a connection between eating fructose and uric acid. And so I'm now even more wondering, because although I didn't eat fruit, because I'm not gonna pretend that I was eating fruit back in the days when I was 80 pounds overweight. That was not what was causing my weight. I drank a lot of I ate a lot of foods that would have had high fructose corn syrup in them, and so fructose, right? And so there's a part of me, again, going back to all the joint pains that I had, wondering about my joint pains. And I was strictly blaming sugar, but like now I'm even more understanding that fructose could be a even bigger part of this problem than I was. I mean, I thought fructose was a problem, but an even bigger problem than I even gave it credit for being. So that's something that I definitely want to look into, and hopefully soon I'll make a video about that. It's part of the reason that I encourage people to um, like share the videos, and I definitely want people to get this information. And also, the more that uh, people share the videos, the more people can start to understand the problems in eating the way that we eat, then the more chance that we have that we end up completely eradicating some of these silly things that are happening. Because I definitely feel like that's something that we need to do. We just need to be able to help everybody understand that what we do in times of need. So if I'm starving and I eat vegetation or even ultra processed foods, if I'm starving, yes, go for it. But if I have access to food every single day, eating vegetation and ultra processed foods over meat is a bad idea. And I feel like we just need people to start to understand where their pain is coming from, why their body is struggling, the things in ultra processed foods that are harming us, the things in vegetation that could be harming us, the things on vegetation, because we put stuff on the vegetation that also harms us. So you said you add electrolytes to your distilled water. Thank you for sharing that, because yeah, distilled water we're not supposed to drink. So okay, I get it. That makes sense. Annie L, I'm new to going carnivore. Is cheese okay, or should I try to avoid it? Well, what I understand from Dr. Eid is that dairy in general is the purpose of dairy is to help the animal consuming it to grow. And so therefore Dr. Eid's caution is that, especially people who are trying to lose weight, first of all, um, it might cause you some issue, but and she also cautions that there's stuff in it that could get you to want it more and more, because there's casomorphines, apparently 4 different kinds of casomorphines, according to Joan Iflin's research. There's like 4 different kinds of casomorphines. And so therefore, what we want to do is we want to be able to um, give our body what's healthiest. So if you have cheese once in a while and you don't get pulled in, and it doesn't pull you off track, it's probably fine, because it is an animal protein source. But if you find yourself having cheese and then having lots of cheese and then everything you want to make it has cheese, if that becomes your story, which I know became my story. There was a point in time where I was having my avocado with like cheese crisps that I was making, and when I found out about the casomorphine thing, I really took a good look at my cheese consumption and realized, wow, I think I was chasing and I just didn't know, because it was cheese. It's healthy, right? And this has been a story for me, by the way, because cashews, they're on the list of the kind of nuts we're allowed to eat. They're healthy, right? And then when I was eating them, I felt horrible. And I just had to realize that no, they're not healthy. So depending on whose food list you look at, different things are marketed or presented as healthy. And this is part of the reason I always tell people, look at your current way of eating. If you're on standard diet, whatever. If you're trying to go keto, take the excessive carbohydrate things off your plate, and whatever you're left with, start there. And usually you can make that work. Whatever low glycemic vegetables that you already liked, you just keep them there. You can add low glycemic vegetables to that if you want. And whatever meats you were having, initially just eat them as is. And then once you're really solid in what you're doing, you clean up like any extra carbs that are in the meats that you're eating. Because the goal is to get to a place where you're eating a healthy keto or carnivore lifestyle forever. In order to do it forever, you need to like what you're eating, right? You need to be encouraged by it. But at the same time, what I figured out is that you don't need to like eating for eating's sake, which is the problem that most of us are living. We eat for eating's sake. What I mean by that is Sometimes you're not hungry, but oh, that looks good and you're eating it. Why are you eating something if you're not hungry? That's a recipe for obesity. That's a recipe for damaging my body. So don't eat things when you're not hungry. Eat when you're hungry, 100%. And when you're hungry, the thought should be meal. Snacking gets put down because snacking is an extra insulin rise that your body doesn't need. Because, yes, every time you eat, even carnivore, your insulin rises because that's just normal. It's what's supposed to happen. So, I want every wellness warrior to do the best that they can and do what makes sense. So, Laura says, I saw Dr. Paul Saladino talk about reverse osmosis treatment. Question: is that good? Reverse osmosis countertop machines are pretty affordable. Um, I don't know for sure. I've never actually investigated what like a reverse osmosis machine, but if it's filtering water and that's basically what it does, it's a water filtration system. It really comes down to which machine filters the water the best. So getting out the harmful things but leaving in the good things. So like with distilled water, for example, it's taking out so much that the water becomes kind of not healthy for us anymore, which is why Navy 80 to 04 is putting electrolytes back in. So you need to look at the reverse osmosis countertop machine and see, is it taking out so much that it becomes unhealthy, or is it just taking out just enough and it's similar to any other filter system that's removing the toxic parts and leaving the good parts? But I don't know. I haven't tried that kind of machine, so I can't give you an answer one way or the other. What do you recommend for oil replacements? Okay, so yeah, the seed oils that you're going to take out of your diet, which include margarine, vegetable oil, canola oil, pretty much any liquid oil you probably want to replace. You're going to replace it with, if you can, only animal fats. That's amazing. So like lard and tallow and duck fat. Trying to think if there's another one. Ghee and butter. If you can replace it with those things, like those are ideal. Um, some people seem to have success with using some olive oil, avocado oil, and coconut oil. I could tell you for myself, when I was using those oils, avocado, coconut, and olive. Wait, avocado, coconut, yes. When I was using those, um, my skin was having problems. Since taking those out of my diet, my dry skin is virtually completely gone. Like I really, my hands were so bad and they are so good now. So I feel like you need to pay attention. And the only way you're really going to know is to test it out. Some people seem to have no problem, but I will point out, sorry, I will go back to it because I will point out that we need to be conscious of what our body is trying to do with the oils. It's trying to build us, right? We're a bunch of cells. So the animal fats have the right kind of fat to build a human body. Um, but I do understand that those three, especially the ones that I named there, they don't seem to be antagonistic for most people. But again, what's best versus what's passable. For me, those three things are possible. Like if I'm in a pinch and I wanted to cook something and there's coconut oil there, I would use it. But I know that I'm like risking that I'm going to have some, right? But would I do that every day? Have I been doing that every day? No, I don't cook with coconut oil every day anymore, which I used to. I've stopped doing that. And avocado oil and olive oil in my like salads. Like I was, well, when I was having salad, that's what I was doing. I don't do that anymore. Right now, if I was going to make a one-off mayonnaise for something, would I use some olive oil? Yeah, sure, I would. If I'm making a one-off, because I don't have a way to make it. Can you make that with butter? I don't know. Maybe butter would work. I never tried. Now I might be making an experiment for myself. I've never tried making mayonnaise with butter. If that's possible, I probably would switch to doing that. But for right now, my go-to thought would have been that I would use olive oil. How do you fix the afternoon energy crash? I still get it. Even on carnivore, I drink coffee? Maybe that's do I do drink coffee, maybe that's wrong. I don't get an afternoon energy crash, and that stopped when I was doing keto. So, what it makes me wonder is could you be so either A, reacting to spices that you might still be putting on your meat? Sometimes those spices, as Dr. Chaffee pointed out, and I think it was so interesting for him to say that, that sometimes that last little 5% is the thing that's holding you back, and your body's still reacting because what seems so small to us is huge to our body, right? Because toxic is toxic. So I would first think about like, might there be a spice, going back to myself again, um, paprika. I didn't know that paprika was a nightshade, and it was still messing with me. I was still putting it on certain things. And when I took paprika out, oh wow, did I feel better, right? And like, but that's like, yeah, you're spicing your food every day. So I would look at that. The other thing is that, um, am I eating enough? So when we're trying to lose weight, we kind of still are trapped in that mentality from way back that says, if you eat too much, you're going to gain weight. And yes, if you eat too much, you will gain weight. The problem is that we've been calorie restricting for so many years that when we start doing the healthy foods, we don't actually know what our body needs. I'm impressed with myself that I've been adding protein to my diet now for so long. And in adding the protein, I'm still stable in my weight. Like I haven't gained anything. I'm at the same. So I think it's important for us to realize that even though we have these old ideas, we might be holding on to things that we don't need to hold on to that's causing us to not achieve our goal. And I see that you did follow up and say you'd still do use spices and you might try removing them. You hadn't thought of that. So I hope that's helpful, and maybe verify if you're eating enough as well. Does the carnivore diet give enough nutrients that we need? Absolutely. Um, I mean, honestly, you if you go to if we would have been 200-300 years living in the north, well, all we would have been eating would have been animal foods most of the year round. So like it's just reality that yes, we get enough nutrients from animal foods and we get them in the right proportion that we should have them. If you're wondering about that, actually think before you act. Yesterday, I put up a video from Georgia Eid, Dr. Georgia Eid, and she kind of walked through that piece of the puzzle. So if you want to double check that video afterwards, what was the name of the video? But it was the video that I put up yesterday. So if you just go to my channel, that you can see that video. Babs Bailey, thank you so much for sure for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing valuable information. Okay, thank you. Wasn't sure there for a second. Thank you for the clarification. Um, how can we deter ourselves from snacking when idle, bored, watching a movie, etc.? What I want you to think more about is rather than trying to deter yourself, think about what why am I idle? So if I'm watching a movie, the hope is that I'm into the movie. Yes, we have a bad habit of movie equals popcorn, but that's something that we've been trained to do. And honestly, I would encourage you to let it go rather than try to deter myself, because one of the things that I've realized is that when we try to fight ourselves from doing something that we want to do, we just want to do it more. So don't fight yourself on it. But I would recognize it and then have a decision making process, because yes, popcorn is something that I used to eat when I watched a movie, but was it helping me to be healthy? Very likely not. So what do I want right now? Do I want to enjoy this movie and stay healthy? Or do I want to enjoy this movie and get sicker? And I think that when we are really honest with ourselves and what the true choice is, we'll enjoy the movie and get healthy. right? And at that point, if you want to have a snack with your movie, I mean, I guess you could make yourself some bacon, or if you're in the movie theater, I guess you could. I mean, Pat and I, we drink carbonated water. That's what we love to do because we just love well, yeah, we just love carbonated water. I mean, I love it so much I make it at home. And like my carbonated water is very carbonated. Um but like, yeah, like you could have something that's not harmful if you're going to have something. And then the other thing is, if I'm idle, if I'm bored, then rather than have food, do something to actually entertain yourself. We need to put down this idea of food as entertainment, because food as entertainment creates obesity. Food as entertainment creates illness, because food is not entertainment. It's supposed to nourish, protect, and energize the body. And if it's not doing those three things, then why are we putting it in our mouth? Why are we putting it in our body? Right? So I just want us to put down this idea. And the best way to put it down, like I said, is to actually do something that you find positive. So, and that might take some investigation. Most of us adults were working most of our lives, right? Like the last time we actually played was back when we were kids. When I was My daughter would have been, I'm going to say 10 years old. I bought a longboard. My daughter was 9 or 10 years old. As a matter of fact, I bought a longboard because I wanted to start longboarding again. Eventually, I bought her one, and we started longboarding. Well, she learned too, and I resumed. Well, I used to skateboard, but yeah, I wasn't going to skateboard, but I and not skateboard like doing tricks, just skateboard to get around town. But I bought a longboard, and we had a great time on it. It was another way for us to play together, right? And I mean, of course, we had bicycles. Um, we actually had our trikes before we had our longboard, because I bought her trike, when her first trike, when she was, I think, 5. So I bought one for myself and I bought one for her. And then I got her an adult sized trike when she was like 13, maybe 13, 12, something like that. So, but we always had these devices to play on. And so I got to experience play again because I had my daughter. So when I want something to do, or wanted something to do, I would just figure out, like with her, like, what are we going to do? Now she's older, and I go longboard riding on my own. I go scootering, or I go, like, all the things that I do, like I do them on my own because they're fun, right? I haven't rollerbladed this summer. I wanted to try to ride each of my devices, so I still want to get that one in before the cold weather happens. But all of these things that we do with our body keeps us healthy and keeps us entertained. So, Rodolin, I'm going to encourage you. Can you find something that you're going to do that maybe not just entertains you, but maybe actually gets your body moving at the same time? Like, that could be cool. Because when I started longboarding again, I was for sure in my 40s. Yeah, was I? Yeah, I was for sure in my 40s, because she was like 10. Yeah, like, it's never too late on this story. And I still longboard till today. I still longboard and scooter. And I will plan to throw those rollerblades on my feet if I can remember to do it before the end of the summer, and ride my bike. And like, all the different devices that I have, I still use them because they're fun. Love your channel. Thanks for all the valuable information you provide. Thank you, Rachel. I do appreciate hearing those kind of things because it's motivating. I'm not gonna lie. Like, we do these. I come out here because I want to help, but sometimes it's not obvious that I'm helpful. So it just helps to hear it. So thank you. And I'm glad you're gonna check out the video. I really do hope it helps you. Don't forget to leave a like. Oh, that would be great if you could leave a like. I would really appreciate that. And I want to take I want to take a second, where is it, to just also thank some, yeah, am I going to find it? Yeah. I want to take a moment to thank the supporters, because they really do mean so much to me. Like, everybody who supports the channel, you guys help this to happen. Like I said, I have that research that I want to dive more into so I can make that video about fructose. And these guys help me to have time to do that research. If any of you would like to become one of these helpful people, there's links in the description, because I do appreciate it. And it does help me to get more videos out to you guys. So it seems like we've come to the end of our comments from what I can see. And I'm really happy that you did find the channel. Wellness Warrior, love it that we had this conversation today. We had some good questions. I really did have a great time answering. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Anna. And I had a great time today. Every Monday, 11:20, I'm here. I bring a topic and then I answer questions. If you want your questions answered, like, for sure, just come and throw your questions out. I'm going to answer them. And because I love this. This is the part that makes me the happiest. Why? It keeps me thinking. It keeps me on my toes, and it gives me something to research sometimes. I didn't know that the fructose thing was going to be more of a thing, but I'm looking forward to diving into that research. So thank you for watching. See you next Monday at 11:20. Have a great rest of your day, Wellness Warrior. Bye.